All right, so I'm currently on the phone with Joe. He's another musician that reached out about the current interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hello. Thanks for having me on the show. And yeah, my name is Joe Candelario. I am the lead singer and lead guitarist for the band Josie Wales Gang. We are based out of northern Colorado. I have also have my own solo project, which I do primarily instrumental stuff. Josie Wales is actually more of a kind of a blues, southern rock style genre. We released 3 CDs in the early 2000s. We're working on our 4th one right now. Whereas my solo material is more of what my influences I grew up from, and that is more along the lines of instrumental rock, kind of Joe Satriani, Steve Vai style. So that's kind of it. I mean, Josie Wales has been around since 1994. So we're coming on next year will be our 30th year anniversary. So that's pretty big thing for us.
Very cool. So I always like to kind of, get back to where it all began. Tell me about, when you first encountered music and, what about it pulled you into it and made you want to have a life with music?
My folks were very, very, they weren't musicians per se, but we had a lot of music. For me as a child, they had a lot of music playing back in the day. My father actually was very much at the time, into bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple. I mean, all that early 70s, I guess, hard rock, heavy metal stuff. And that kind of was what I could still remember to this day. I mean, he had an 8-track machine, so I still remember that in like Led Zeppelin. I know I can still recall when the track switches over. I don't know if you're familiar with when 8-track when they pop. So there was a part of that. I can still hear it in songs, even though today the music's digital. So, but in the back, I mean, it was just so ingrained in my head that I hear the pop still in my head. So that was, some of my earliest influences. My mother on the other side was into more of like Peter, Paul and Mary and Kenny Rogers and First Edition, a little more country, a little more folk, James Taylor. She loved Elton John. So I was kind of there was 2 different genres of music that were really, really playing in my home as a child. And there was always music. I mean, from the minute, back when I was a child, we didn't have cable television. I think we had like maybe 4 channels. So we spent most of our afternoons and, mornings and stuff like that, just playing albums. And, my dad had an old 4-track reel-to-reel cassette, and he would spend probably like 3 hours of music on there, and he would just play it all day long. And so there was always music going on in the house. So that was kind of my earliest influences. And I went through all the stuff as a child in the late 70s. I was big into Kiss and, Alice Cooper and stuff like that.
When did you kind of make the next step to kind of, really commit to it and start learning an instrument?
My family actually also, my grandfather and my uncles and some cousins of mine, they all played in bands. They all play. We had one of my cousins' bands had kind of like a really big, my earliest memories of them is really with a lot of the trumpets and the horn section and kind of that funk R&B sound. And I remember going and seeing them at weddings and just being mesmerized by their performancing and them playing. And like I said, my uncles and my grandfather played, and I just kind of always wanted to, it just interested me so much. And, so much as a young lad that I would actually have my Kiss record on or something like that. I'm sorry, the dog's barking.
That's okay.
I don't know if you're getting that. So, I'd have like a tennis racket, and I'd be out there playing to Kiss and pretending had the moves down, trying to do
Nice.
just like they were, So I think it just kind of, I love the idea of it, and the fantasy, and of becoming a rock star or a musician.
Sure. So, do you think once you started, learning an instrument and getting into it that way, it kind of helped you connect with music as a whole and get you to the point where you wanted to start writing and joining bands and stuff?
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I when I started playing guitar, and I actually started, I mean, I was taking just the basic guitar lessons, just learning chords and scales. And a lot of my peers at that age, early junior high, were already playing guitar. They were already doing stuff. They were a little bit more advanced than I was. So I had actually took up, because I wanted to play in a band, and I wanted to do the garage band, hang out with my friends, and be a part of something. So I actually started out playing bass guitar and learning the bass lines, and I think really that changed my way of looking of how to play the music. I focused more on the rhythm of the song versus trying to solo, and
Sure.
and it made me listen to melody more and rhythm of the song. So as I began early in my career or life, I guess musical life, writing material came more like that. I was more focused on making the rhythm of the song sound right, making sure that there was a melody to the
Hmm.
song. Um, I wasn't the greatest lyricist at that time, even right up into my late 20s. I was not. I mean, lyrics are very, very challenging for me. I have to
Hmm.
really, they're usually the last thing that I think about when I'm writing a song.
Sure.
I get the idea of what I want to talk about, but I don't normally I don't have like just this chorus that pops in my head all of a sudden, it's kind of,
Sure.
I kind of have an idea of what the message I want, but it takes me a while to get to that, to convey it out.
Okay. So, tell me about the process that it took for you to get into the band that you're currently in. And what I mean by that is, when did you feel comfortable to start like auditioning and reaching out like that? And then, once you did get into the band, how did you kind of approach working with the other musicians?
So as a young, once again, this is now move up in timeline a little bit more. I'm in high school, and I was in a band with some friends, some buddies. Now I'm playing guitar and I'm singing, and we're doing covers. We're playing out. We're starting to do, at that point, we're going to date myself. This is during when bars used to have 3-2 bars, which was 3.2% alcohol,
Sure, sure.
and primarily for 18 year olds to 21-year olds. So in high school, I was starting to get into bars and play that, and just sharpening my skills as a performer, and instrumentation, getting better with my instrument, and becoming a better, sharper, performing wise, and not really focusing yet on original material yet. So I did that for a few years, and then in my early 20s, I moved away, and moved to a city called Colorado Springs, which is southern Colorado, and there is where I got into working with other working on collaboration and writing music. I was really big at that point, and then we're talking late '80s, early '90s, and I was really big into the bands like Metallica and Queensryche, and much more complex material. And so that was kind of where I started collaborating with other guys. I worked with my good friend. His name is Ron. I played bass, and together we spent hours coming up with riffs and ideas, and really technical stuff that we were trying to, show our ability at that point. After about 4 years, I moved back to Denver and did a couple of cover bands, but I had a friend, his name was Pat, and he was the original drummer of the band, Josie Wells. And together we sat down, and he said, We both were really at this now. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan had just passed, and we were both kind of, what a loss to us. I mean, Stevie Ray at this point was now a big influence on me. So I wanted to make something that was more blues rock oriented, and he was really big into a lot of the British blues stuff like Robin Trower and early Cream and stuff like that. So that was kind of our first layout plan of what we were going to sound like. So that's where we started at. We had this basic foundation of how we wanted to, the concept of what we were going to do. So, and literally he would come up with a drum line, and I would come up with, keep that beat going, and I would come up with a riff or an idea, or I'd come in with, I got this riff, what do you think of this? And together we would go back and forth and collaborate. We didn't have a bass player. I mean, we had multiple people come in and jam with us and play the bass. And it was really, one day we had this one guy come out, his name was Mike, and he just seemed to be the perfect fit. He had the right idea. He jumped right in. He actually had ideas of how to change a lot of the song structures. And the original CD that I just re-released earlier this week, that we made in 1998. He was very much a significant part of how we structured the songs. A lot of them were still basically, two lyrics, chorus, lyric. He was the one that kind of said, well, let's add an intro here, let's put a break, let's put a bridge here, you should put a bridge here. So it kind of helped me grow as a writer, which took me farther as I got more advanced in like I said, I was more focused on becoming more of the instrumentation and playing, being good at my instrument rather than thinking about songwriting.
Sure.
He was the one that Michael was actually the guy that actually started getting us more into writing a song and coming up with the idea of the song.
So you said the band has been together for a very long time. Where do you guys kind of think that, you've spanned throughout, the amount of time that you've been playing together, and then where you're going? Do you branch out into different genres, or are you kind of reinventing yourself every time you put out an album? Give me some information about that.
Like I said, the band originally had the original basic format of the band, or the foundation, was to be more of like a kind of a cross between British rock blues and kind of that Stevie Ray Vaughan Texas shuffle blues. It was that was the concept. Along the way, we started hearing artists like King's X and Government Mule, and I've always been big on trios. It's a simpler. It's just a small. It's a nice family tight unit where the three of us all work, and and it kind of once again puts you in a position where you're kind of limited, even though you're limited to what you can do, you can actually branch out more, and each member can add more of their own style to it. So you're not stuck, with just behind a keyboard player or another rhythm guitar player. You're just kind of doing it as a jam kind of, and that was kind of what was always been what's driven the band.
And are you guys currently in the process of writing new material, or are you just doing shows? Where are you out in that phase?
So, like I said, we started out and we got really popular, really big in the day in late 90s, early 2000s. Did a lot of theaters and clubs, and went up and down the Front Range, and went out to Utah and Wyoming and Kansas and in the Colorado area, regional area. And, over time, people would come and go, and the band has changed over the years. Musically, as I got more and more confident with my songwriting abilities, I was able to add more. When I brought somebody in, I made sure we were working towards, a story, and the songwriting was going to be more, was going to take more of a front front runner rather than just jamming and stuff like that. So the band has kind of has matured over the years. And I mean, to be honest with you, playing original music is fun and it's great. And, you get a lot of, there's a great creative side to it. You get to create and do what you want and stuff like that. However, a majority of the fans don't, if they're not familiar with it, they usually are not as acceptable.
Sure.
So basically the last decade, we have toned back a lot of the original material and went back to just being more of a cover band, because that was really my original sound. So we've been an original or a cover band primarily. We throw in an original here and there. And it's literally been within the last 2 years, especially with COVID and all that came out, and we had to slow down, and not a lot of people were playing out, and that's what really segued back into, well, let's just do our own thing for a while and write our own stuff. So one of the things I went back. I kind of was still doing the Whales thing, doing the cover stuff, but I was also, which is really kind of what brought me back to doing my own solo instrumental stuff and doing stuff that really gave me the opportunity to showcase not only my songwriting skills, but more of I'd advanced as a player, as well as my wife and I, when we moved to Loveland, Colorado, we built a studio in my basement. So I was very, very much more fortunate to have the luxury of time to actually become a producer and an engineer and work on my own stuff. And of course, there's a learning curve to it all, but and it took me, so I'm very, very at ease now, where I can, I got this idea, and I'll say, and now it's my style more now is sometimes I'll just be, strumming on the acoustic or something. I'll come up with an idea and I was like, oh, this should go this way. And I'll go just record it. It may not be what the final piece of the song is, but it's something I get down and then I build off of that. I even get to the point now, like the latest CD I'm finishing up for, I actually sat down. I'm a big, I love movies. I'm a big horror fan movie. I love sci-fi movies. So I during COVID, I had, like I said, we had slowed down, and I was like, I'm going to take on this project. And one of my big influences in music was Rush. So they were strong. The three bands that are my influences in life are Rush, Van Halen, and Iron Maiden. So I kind of wanted to make something that was more progressive, and I wanted it to tell a story. So the CD that I'm basically wrapping up, or LP, what have you, is all based off of science fiction stories. So I would sit down and say, okay, I need a Star Trek song. I need a song based about Star Trek.
Sure.
And I went through, and I remember, watching all the movies and watching all the lore and all the series and stuff. So I sat down and came up with an idea, and I had this kind of jazzy but dark riff that I had. And it came out to be a song that's on the CD called Sete Alpha 5, which is, if you're a Star Trek nerd like myself, that's the planet where Captain Kirk leaves his nemesis Khan in the original series. And like I said, I went through and I worked on, okay, this is what I see, this is what I feel, this is how I hear it. This is basically kind of like soundtracks. I'm making a soundtrack to everything that I made. So
sure,
that's the beauty. That's the beauty now of writing and working. I still work. Obviously, I work with the band, and we still play it out. Probably a little hoarse today. I had a show last night, so little hoarse today. So
yeah, no, that's great. One thing I always tell the musicians that I interview is, to kind of empower themselves and do as much as you can on your own, because that's the direction the industry is going anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what that freedom having my own studio and being able to release stuff through, CD Baby and my own,
Hmm.
streaming, getting on streaming services is very much a blessing, I feel. And I think it's kind of the way right now that the industry is heading, and is
Yep.
probably in for best for, I mean, granted, we're not going to be we're not going to be cashing big checks at the at the bank, but you're still out there, you're still creating, you're still able to get out there. And
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
things that's beauty now that I found, especially with this CD, is the ability to work virtually, or collaborate virtually. Not so much as, hey, come over and let's write a song. Now it's more, hey, I got this idea, this is what I'm thinking, I'll send you, excuse me, the track, and tell me what you can do, and then if you can add your vocal track, send them back, and you do that through that. And I'm honored that right now the first single off this new CD that's coming out, I worked with Tim Ripper Owens, who is the lead singer was the lead singer for Judas Priest. He was in Iced Earth. He's got his own solo stuff now. I don't know how familiar you are with that. It's with Tim.
Yeah, that's great.
So he's on the newest track right now. Is the track we just released, that new track in February. It's the precursor to the whole entire album. That's, like I said, it's very, very based off of science fiction.
Well, while we're kind of close to that topic, why don't you throw out your social media links where people can check you out and listen to that stuff?
You can find the band Josie Wales. It's all, of course, it's more of the older stuff. So that's we have a Spotify. It's Josie Wales. You can also find us on Instagram, just called Josie Wales Gang. For my stuff, it's just Joe Candelario. You can also find me on Instagram for Candelario Music, and as well as I have a Facebook, Joe Candelario Music, and there's a Josie Wales Gang Facebook page. The website is candelariomusic.com, as well as josiewales.com. That's pretty much where we have everything. Like I said, we just that's where most of so I mean, I've got YouTube videos here and there. I mean, I've unfortunately not organized there. I mean, it's just kind of different people putting stuff up and me putting stuff up, so it's kind of all up.
Well, what would be a message that you want to throw out there for like your last word? Something that you feel you resonate with that you want people to hear?
To get to this point in my career, just being patient and persistent. Not every day, you don't win every day. Some days it's just your win is a learning experience, and you just need to be patient and persistent at what you want to do and believe in what you're doing. And don't be afraid to work with other people. I mean, just because, primarily, I don't sit and collaborate a lot with a lot of the musicians now. I mean, most of the time I do a lot of the recording on my own, a lot of the writing on my own, but I still work in tandem with other musicians, and I spend a lot of time going and seeing a lot of local bands and local artists and local songwriters, and I'm always learning, always listening, supporting them as much as they're supporting me. I mean, it's just keep it true to yourself, keep it true to be in music because you're in for the music. If you make some money, good job. If you get where you want to be in life, awesome. That's freaking kudos to you, man. It's not, but sometimes it's just about, don't forget about where you came from and playing music. I started out when I first started out in the band, I did it because I wanted to hang out with my friends and be with my buddies and, play some music and have a few laughs, and it's still that way today. Even with the guys I'm with that I play with, it's really low key. I mean, it's just get together and we play some music and we go do some shows and, we make people happy. We make people smile, and, nothing is more, rewarding than having people come up to you or, really, enjoying themselves and seeing them on the dance or having a good time, and not the roar of the crowd, but just the cheers, and it's good just to see people interacting with you stage and off stage, and so but that all didn't come right away. It all took patience and persistence, and like you said, sometimes you have to reinvent yourself. You have to rethink, okay, this direction isn't working. So, don't be afraid to look at that and say, okay, I need to change this. So like I said, I guess just be good to yourself and be patient and keep working, man. You're going to get there.